if you look at the market right now, the market is actually erasing a lot of stuff which seems confusing. I think we all will agree on those ones. When you see these kind of stuff, we tend to say, okay, that's actually positive. That's great news. Then you need to actually dig in, like what's happening there. And okay, they are moving on to this particular system, but what's happening in that country? The inflation rate is going sky high. The monetary issues are there. When you look at all of them, and then come back to see like what's happening here with a Ripple unlocking another 500 million within that 24-hour period of unlocking billion. What is happening there? How do you make any kind of sense for this? Because they haven't done this for a long period of time. The XRP supply increase has been stable. So now if we are looking at that, we are like, okay, the supply just went high. Does that actually impact the price heavily? Right now, it's not impacting the price. Then you're looking at the macro scenario. Is this actually playing out? Will this play out? If this plays out, you have an area of price fluctuation. That's for sure. If it is coming out and announcing that they are going to pause the interest rate hikes, that's definitely going to push the price higher. Now, if you are looking at the market, in general, the market is not doing much. It's kind of slow, it's kind of stable at the bottom, not at the top, as we want, but at the bottom. And you're looking at a lot of different coins, they are moving. Now you're going to look at those coins and see like what the chart showed just before it broke higher, and do we have an opportunity in the XRP as it goes higher. Now we don't know what's happening, but if we are comparing it with the assets which just broke higher 60% a day, I think you have a big opportunity there, because you have divergence here and you are getting divergence here too. Now you can argue like, okay, the RSI need to actually come back down, but some of the assets which went up like that didn't do that. The RSI didn't actually come back to the bottom, rather it's bouncing. Now the price did come back to test the bottom, but the RSI didn't, and the price actually bounced from there. Now we are like, okay, if I'm zooming out, I'm getting different information and I'm looking at the entire market, and this is what's happening. So the money has to come from somewhere. You look at the Ether, it's like 130 billion. BTC is 367 billion. So if you are a fundamental guy trying to make sense of these, you look at this and you say like, okay, there is a lot happening right now, and with what's happening from the Supreme Court of the United States, that looks really good for assets like XRP and a lot bad for assets like Bitcoin in my thought process. So I'm like, okay, if this is happening, then that does mean when you're moving on to a payment system, which you will have to, because the other side, the competitors are actually gaining strength. They are now going in one by one, and they're saying, okay, we are going to go for another payment system. So now when you talk about Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, you know that majority of the population is oriented there, and now there is a push of new countries entering into the BRICS nations. You can see like Singapore, Malaysia, all these countries like Iran and all going in that way, which will put effort to the side of US, because they now have to keep their superpower and they need to take us through this payment system, because the monetary system is collapsing. There are countries which is going 150 basis points hike. You can't actually say that, okay, with the current inflation rate we won't do this. There is still a possibility where the CPI was 9%, and here in the West they are hiking like 75 basis points, okay, 100 basis points. Still, it's big, but you're going to see something even bigger. I think you are really going to watch something bigger coming into the market. So let's actually discuss through this and see like what's the probability of XRP moving higher sooner than waiting for another 3 years, right? Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where we discuss crypto and science behind investing regularly. Now we look at XRP to Bitcoin and compare them. Say this is Bitcoin, it's going down, the price is making a lower low, but the RSI is also making a lower low. You don't actually get a bullish divergence in the RSI or the MACD there. Fine. Then you go look at XRP and you say like, okay, we do get the price moving to the downside and the RSI moving to the upside. That's bullish. You look at the MACD, it's also trending higher, so that also does look bullish divergence there. Now we are looking at another asset which broke higher recently. That's NEM. The price was trending lower, RSI was trending higher. It came back to that trend line and bounced. So if that's what we are looking at, this is Ether to XRP and XRP Ether. So here you see the price is making a double bottom possibility, Adam and Eve double bottom possibility, and at the same time you can observe like the RSI is making a higher low. That definitely is a bullish divergence. So if you are looking at that, you're asking, okay, how high can you actually go if you break higher? That's 65% move to the upside. So you take that and you say, okay, if XRP is doing that against Ether, against BTC, it's going to do something similar. So you now go to XRP BTC on a 3-day same time horizon and to look at that one, right? So when you're like, okay, BTC is not doing much and XRP is doing something, now you are comparing both of them to see like what's the probability. And you come here at a point where you see like, okay, XRP BTC pair, it's actually making a lower low in the price here and then bouncing to make a higher high. Fine, this was the previous high, this is the new high, so that's a higher high. Great. At the same time you get the RSI making a higher low, so it's starting to trend back up with a higher high compared to all these highs here. So there is something changing in this dynamic. So I definitely believe like money is gonna come out of Bitcoin and Ether and go into solutions where the regulators are going to step in. Like this one is actually one of that. If you want to use a public blockchain that must have administrative functions under centralized control, where if a government wants to say like, okay, we can't have it like this, you need to change it like this, or you get my point, you need validators for those payments, because you don't want anyone and everyone to use the payment for a lot of bad thing like terrorism and other stuff. So they want to prevent that kind of funding. Now mostly you're going through exchanges where you are already KYC'd, so you actually know, like they actually know who you are and where you're sending money to, so that's kind of limited. Now it comes to a point where the world of finance is changing and they are entering into a new payment era. Now, when we were talking about inflation like this couple of years, people kind of ignored it. They were saying like, okay, what is he talking about it from last 2 years that inflation is going to go higher? Now we feel that. Now we all feel that, right? You go purchase the grocery, you feel that. You go fill the fuel, you feel that. The inflation is a real stuff. Now why am I saying that? If your money is still in a fiat currency, it's depreciating in value. Now, I'm not saying if you were in crypto, it would be better. We are already down heavily. So that doesn't actually make much of a change. But here you are in an asset which can go back higher. At the other end, it's done. Your purchasing power is gone. It's not coming back. Now, look at this XRP unlock. They actually come up with 1 billion every month. First of the month, we know that. Afterwards, you're seeing a couple more coming out. And this time around, when usually we see like, say for example, a billion comes to the market, they put 800 million, a billion comes and they put 800 million back into the escrow. But this time we saw that they're putting like 700 back into the escrow, like 2 transactions, like 500 and then 200. Fine. So the 1.5 is still there in the market, meaning where they put the 700 back, you have 800 in the market. So 300 from the escrow and then additional 500. So what's the use case? Right now, no one knows for sure what's happening there, but with what you are observing here, kind of these deals, it can be this government, it can be another government. But this kind of deal, which is actually big, can be happening where you are like, okay, fine, this is our system which if you are using for these years, this is the settlement asset for all your back end payments, settlements, and you may actually need this asset to use for that purpose. And they are like, okay, What's the price of 100 million of that asset, which we can use for next 100 years? Then they're buying it from the market. That's a possibility. And without shaking the market, this is the only way they can do it, right? They are taking it out, releasing it, and the other guy is buying it from the market. So you have a dynamics where supply is coming in and going out. So it really kind of, don't shake the market. And if you look at that total volatility during that day, it's actually a decent fluctuation, down 0.3 percentage. Yeah, it is down, but it is still 0.3 percentage considering the entire market doing this. It's not a big deal. You are still in the market where the price is slowing down and you're waiting for a breakout. So if you've been looking at XRP BTC pair for some time, now you are like, okay, I know that we are at a resistance. I know that the moving average is just above the price, the 50 and 200. So if you are able to break this to the upside, then it starts the next rally. But there are days and there are assets which actually does these kind of fluctuation. People come back taking profit. If you go on a 2-hour chart, 4-hour chart, you will see like this broke higher. Now it's coming back to retest this moving average. So inside the same market, when you're observing different assets, say for example, you go to look at XRP USD in a different time frame, but you also look at this and say like, okay, there is a possibility on a daily you get this. And when you go on to a 3-day chart, you still get that, right? The RSI is slowly trending to the upside. The MACD is slowly crossing back to the upside. You are at that point. Price is still at the bottom trying to retest this base. And if price is at that bottom retesting this base and the RSI is trending higher, you have a higher probability that it may go check these moving averages, right? 0.6. Now that's a 100% move for XRP itself, and that's a lot of relief for guys like us who are holding this from a very long time and watching the price go up, down, this volatility. Now, if you're working on the side, you have the hustles, you have your normal job, you have the liquidity, you are gaining in liquidity, there's a great area for you because this happened to be a long-term support resistance zone for this asset. Now, when I say long-term, you look at the entire history of XRP and you feel like, okay, majority of the part, XRP has been respecting this particular range. At first, it was a resistance, right? If you put that correctly, at first it was a resistance. After which it turned into a support and then again resistance and now support. If that is the case and you are getting the divergence here, you should be starting another move to the upside. Now that's what we can understand from the market, but we don't know whether the market is going to do that. Fine, because now say this is XRP, fine, you see momentum there, you see volatility there, and you're like, okay, fine, that's XRP. Can other assets do something like that? Then for that case, I can actually take you towards XLM and look at it. Same, the 3-day chart, the price is trending to the downside, the RSI is trending to the upside, the MACD is about to cross to the upside, and you still have a pattern where if you break, you can go higher. But it's not like XRP, you have 100% to the upside before reaching those moving average and resistance. You do have 60% here to move up, but that's decent move. Fine. Now we go zoom out and look at this particular asset and ask that question like, okay, how longer to the downside you have to go to meet a resistance? There's that support which you are at right now, whereas the previous one was this, which you broke lower. If you can actually recognize this, we broke that one lower. Then the next one, which is going to be the heavy one, is here. So what's the difference between XRP and XLM right now? XLM, it happens to be 3 different zones of support like this, whereas for XRP, it's all at the same zone. Fine, it's all at the same zone. You go back to the XRP and you are looking at the same XRP chart, asking that question, okay, here it was a resistance for XRP, but not for Stella. It was lower. It had a different level, right? Here for XRP, it's different. This resistance, this support, this resistance, all of them align in the same area. Now, is the price lower from where we thought it would be? Yes, it is much lower. With the market like this and the economic situation like this, we can't complain. But I understand this. A lot of people were wiped out from the market. They don't own their assets now. They got liquidated. They lost. If you are still in the market with your units, that's like you hold the same amount of your house, the same amount of your equity in a company. The company in price is not doing good, but in performance is great. Now that's what you want to buy. And that's something you want to hold. If you want to add on to your bags, that's a great thing. If you don't want, that's just time and patience going through this one. If you are looking at this market and asking that question like, okay, which assets are doing this, there's a lot of them showing that option, and we are going through ask for TA session where people ask for all different type of assets, and we go through them and see whether they have this divergence. Because why is that so important? Now I'm like, that is important because there are assets which burst like this once you show the divergence. There's not just one. We had like 4 or 5 bursting in the last couple of days, right? After showing this divergence. So it is really important for you to look at that. And if you really want to get onto those kind of stuff where we actually post these kind of divergence, you can actually look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below. And guys, if you're receiving value, you understand something, and look at something in the news saying like, okay, this, I didn't notice this before, hit that like button. That supports the channel a lot, and it kind of motivates me to do more. Fine. Now, when you actually look at these, you kind of get that probability of understanding, okay, if a government is using this system for back-end payments in one area of their monetary side, and once they execute it and understand, okay, this is really helping them in one way or the other, they may go use this for another purpose. Now, other nations which are kind of, rivals, they will also go looking at these kind of solutions to use, adapt, and go. That's one of the examples which we were talking about in South Korea, right? All the payments companies, say Senbi, Cross, Wire Bali, G Money Trans, all of them had to go on to Ripple because one went into Ripple and was providing their customers better service at a lower cost. So you can't compete there. In the same way, if you have an economic situation where everything is going down and you need to balance this, you need a new monetary infrastructure, and that's where governments are going right now for using CBDCs. Right now, you don't have it in the most of the nations, and if this gets worse in the economic situation, you may have to go on rely on a public blockchain. And I think that is coming sooner than we expect, because this stuff is really big. There is no doubt to strike down Gensler's overreach, and I do think there is a huge possibility because the way SEC is acting, it doesn't make any sense for me, because any educated guy, this guy was a professor in a reputed institution, I think it was MIT, and coming out and doing these kind of stuff, it doesn't make any kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, there's a big guy but doesn't understand small things, right? So if that's the case, and you look at the inflation rate right now and say, okay, inflation is not going up for 10 years, it go up and it come back down, and Fed doesn't actually have to stop hiking interest rate or reduce before this. Say here in this chart, it actually gives you that perfect idea, right? Rahul actually is highlighting that before the inflation peaks, they can pause. Before the inflation peaks, they can reduce. That has been happening in the history for a long time. So as he's highlighting here, I think it's going to come. There was a pause before, and as they go down, inflation was still going up, but then eventually it came back down. So if that narrative is coming out to play in July, August, you are going to see Fed going back, pausing, or even reversing the interest rates. That means free money to the market, as we discussed in the Patreon in a detailed discussion post where we were talking about all this. And that's literally kind of happening now. And these macro guys are also observing something similar. And we're like, okay, we are not way far away from the reality seen by these guys. And if that's a possibility, good days are coming. And you need more patience to go through those good days. So guys, stay in this market, have patience. Don't look at your portfolio every 5 minutes. Look at your life, enjoy your life. And on this side, look at the fundamentals. If the fundamental went down, that asset is done. No chance. Now you don't have an option. But if the fundamental is increasing on a daily basis, like what we see for XRP, hold strong. That's it for today, guys. I'll meet you on the next video. Bye-bye.